Hi everyone, welcome to CAT Prep with Aman. If you're an MBA aspirant looking to do an MBA in India next year, then definitely you need to know every single thing about the CAT. That's precisely what this video is for. Every single thing that you need to know about the CAT is going to be covered over the next few minutes, so please watch on. Firstly, the CAT is the Common Admission Test. It is conducted by the IIMs usually in the end of November every single year. It's a computer-based test that tests you on your aptitude. Usually, it's a 2-hour exam comprising of 3 areas: verbal, DILR, and quants. Each area is for 40 minutes. It is a multiple choice exam, so it's only MCQs, there's no theory. And last year, that is CAT 24, we had 68 questions. So the structure of the exam was 40 minutes per section, 3 sections, making it 2 hours. 24 questions in verbal, 22 in DILR, and 22 in quants. Overall number of questions therefore was 68. The scoring was +3 marks for a right answer and -1 for a wrong answer when the questions were multiple choice. Now, there were also a few questions in every section which were not multiple choice but this thing called TITA, type in the answer. So a box was given to you and you need to insert the number. Every question had an answer. The answer was a whole number. You have to insert the number in the box. This type of question carried no negative marking. So whether you attempted it and you got it right, then you got 3 marks. If you attempted it but got it wrong, you still did not lose anything. So this was the overall structure of the CAT paper in terms of the number of questions, timing, and marking scheme. Let me now talk about the portions of the CAT. This is something that is extremely important and that will help you throughout your entire preparation. So on the verbal area, we had only 3 topics primarily: reading comprehension, para jumbles, and para summary. There were 16 questions in reading comprehension. What exactly is RC? I'm sure most of you know, but very quickly, what it means is a passage is given and 4 questions were associated with it. Typically, the passages were based on science, history, literature, art, and so on. So you had 16 questions from reading comprehension. All of these were MCQ. The remaining 8 questions were a mix of para jumbles and para summary. So there was an absence of vocabulary, grammar, etc. as far as the CAT is concerned. Moving on, the DILR section basically means data interpretation and logical reasoning. Now typically how data interpretation is defined is by bar graphs, pie charts, line graphs, and tabular data. Little computation intensive, involving a little bit of percentages, ratios, etc. How logical reasoning is typically defined is sets involving seating arrangements, selections, distribution, games and tournaments, routes and networks, numerical logical reasoning, and so on. But what is interesting is usually the CAT is a blend or a hybrid of both of these. You had 5 sets in CAT 24, 3 sets comprised 4 questions while the other 2 sets comprised 5 questions each. So in these 22 questions, most of the questions involved logically thinking but also making calculations to arrive at the right answer. The DILR section typically has no portions as you call it, but important things that could help you is practicing percentages from a quant perspective, as well as doing things like the Sudoku and just ensuring that your basic logical reasoning is solid. The last section, which is probably the most dreaded section for most students, is the quants. So as far as the quants is concerned, there are quite a lot of myths that are there and how you have to prepare. So let me just clarify this once and for all for you. So on the quants, we typically have about 15 topics. These topics are ratios and percentages, mixtures, averages, time and distance, time and work, number properties, geometry, both 2-dimensional, 3-dimensional, and coordinate geometry, the entire algebra part comprising of linear equations, quadratic equations, functions, logs, and modulus. And then you had the logical areas, which were sequences and series, permutations and combinations, and probability. Please understand that there is no higher level math involved as far as the CAT is concerned. So things that students did probably in the 11th and 12th standard, namely calculus, differentiation, integration, integral calculus, determinants, matrices, higher level trigonometry, almost nothing of this is going to be tested on your exam. So please understand that, and the fact that the CAT contains only questions that are until your 10th grade. So your basics across till your 10th standard needs to be solid. So this was as far as the portions is concerned for the CAT. Now come a few important pointers regarding scoring, what kinds of marks are typically required to get into what kinds of schools and so on. So, since there are 68 questions on the exam, it is almost impossible to attempt all of them. In fact, you should not, right? Also, what happens is amongst these 68, last year's statistics said that if a student got exactly 50% of these right, so roughly about 34 questions right and maybe a few wrong, he was still around the 99th percentile. What exactly do you mean by percentile? It's the percentage of students you have defeated. So for example, if you're the 99th percentile, it only means 1% of all the 3 lakh students who wrote the CAT last year were placed higher than you, which means you were the 3000th best student in the country out of 3 lakh students, which is an excellent performance. So even to get the 99th percentile, all the student needed was roughly about 50% of the total answers right. Section wise, typically, since verbal is at the beginning, most students attempt more questions in verbal, thereby getting some more right answers but also some wrong answers. Or in other words, in verbal, my suggestion would be to take some chances. If you're confused between a couple of options, you should go for it. Typically, your attempts should be higher. Something like 18 to 20 attempts out of 24 is considered good, provided your accuracy is obviously good. However, for the other two sections, DILR and quants, it's not so. In these two sections, it's more about accuracy, not so much about attempts. Let me explain why. You might think out of 22 questions in both these areas individually, you need to probably get 15, 16, 18 right answers if you have to be very, very good. The answer is no. Did you know that probably just about 8 to 10 right answers in quants, right? I'm talking about roughly 25 marks, almost fetch you the 95th percentile last year. So this shows that in these two sections, both DILR and quant, the most important thing is to pick only the questions that you know and do them correctly. Remember, every paper has some easy, medium and hard questions. It's about picking the easy and medium ones alone and leaving out the hard ones. So unlike in school or in college where you probably attempted a lot of or almost every question, right, which was there on your question paper, on the CAT, it's the bang opposite. You only attempt what you know, you attempt that right, keep a very high accuracy, and you're going to end up with a great percentile. So what exactly will happen once you get your scores and your percentiles? Next comes the interviews. So you have to apply to schools based on the percentiles you have secured, and then the B schools will call you. During the interviews, they're obviously going to test you on a lot of things like your personal details, your hobbies, why you want to do an MBA. So typical MBA questions are asked. Alongside this, there might also be an essay writing, as well as during the application form, they could ask you key questions like describe a situation where you led a team, or key MBA parameters like what was the biggest crisis you managed, or what are your biggest strengths and weaknesses, and so on. So in my opinion, you should firstly prepare for the CAT over these 9-10 months, and probably only in the last 2-3 months you should have these answers ready for your interviews. Watch on in the next video to know how exactly you have to prepare for the CAT as well as the interviews. All the best.